So it's been a couple of weeks now since we last saw KP's latest version of Kate. Since then, William has pretty much withdrawn from the public. We also know that Kate won't be making any more appearances for the rest of the year or beyond for that matter. And I was really hoping that Kate would be okay, but this is exactly what I said would happen. That we won't be seeing Kate again, ever. And I'll get more into that in a bit. So at this point, most people have fallen into one of four camps. You have the folks who believe anything the palace or anyone in authority tells them. And one of you made a great point in the comments the other day that it's almost like a kind of Stockholm Syndrome, in that despite the ridiculousness that has unfolded over these last several weeks, the puff pieces, the fake pictures, the body doubles, you still have people who stubbornly refuse to accept that they are being lied to or that the palace would ever lie to them. And I just want to remind you that these people are not examples of moral virtue here. These people are not better than you. And if it means saving face or embarrassment or worse, they will lie. Then you have the folks who have their doubts. Their rational mind tells them that something doesn't add up. But the people in this category are too scared to come out and say that they think the palace would ever lie about something as awful as cancer. So they would rather play it safe, because if it does turn out to be true, then they don't want to look like assholes. So even though they have their doubts, and many of them I've spoken to have strong doubts, they prefer to just not say anything. And I will say that the majority of people fall into this category. And here's the thing. The people in this category, from what I've observed, believe that by not expressing their doubt, they're somehow taking the moral high ground, that they're staying above the fray, and they figure it's better just to remain quiet and be polite than to say anything. And folks, I just want to say that if you fall into this camp, you may think this is the morally superior position to take, but it is in fact the cowardly position to take. Because in effect, they, and by they I mean Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace, because we know now for a fact that Charles and Camilla are a part of this conspiracy, and the British press have succeeded in silencing you. And that was their intention all along. Having this deep fake rendition of Kate announce that she has quote unquote cancer was basically their way of telling us to keep out. And then there is a third category, I might add, of people who are just not paying attention to this stuff at all and who just really don't care. And then finally, you have us, the people who can smell the stink coming from all the way across the 3,000-mile pond, who are being called conspiracy theorists and anti-monarchists or haters or whatever else they want to say. I really don't care. I just know that a woman has gone missing, and because of who she is married to, we may never know what happened to her. So if you're new to this channel, let me just do a quick recap. Kate and her kids were last seen at Christmas. A couple of days later, this convoy was seen leaving Sandringham and heading in the direction of the hospital. There were no reports on who may have been in that convoy. There was no report from Kensington Palace, but it is widely suspected by now to have been Kate. And this is where all the mystery begins. 3 weeks later, it was announced that she had had abdominal surgery, to the shock of everyone, including close friends and family. And folks, I just have to say that when this was announced, The moment this was announced, my intuition told me that something was wrong. This was even before all the bizarre behavior from William. I knew from this point that something was wrong. If you recall, it was at this time we started seeing all these reports in the press about William being a solo dad, and there was almost like a kind of rebranding that was taking place. And this was also when the Spanish reporter announced that Kate had to be intubated and placed into a coma. The palace denied it, of course, but the reporter who announced this did not back down, and in fact went on to reiterate her story that Kate was in fact put in a coma at some point. And I think it was during this time that many in the press close to the royal family realized that Kate was not coming back. So here's my analysis. Kate may still have been alive up to a certain point. If you recall, there was a lot of movement taking place at the clinic where she and Charles were supposedly admitted. I mean, we know that Charles was there for sure. If you remember, Camilla was seen constantly going in and out. William made one visit to see Kate. A few days later, it was announced that both she and Charles were discharged at the same time. And that just seemed a little odd to me because, for one, no one saw Kate leave, despite cameras being posted at every entry and exit.
Cameras are literally covering every single entrance and exit.
But everyone saw Charles leave. And I'm thinking now that it was coordinated in this way to distract from Kate either not being there at all or having already left in another way. And then the next day, all the reporters were inexplicably wearing black. Flags were placed at half-mast, but there was no death announcement. And I'm sorry if this is a little bit jarring for you, but if you're watching this right now, I just want you to understand that I want justice for Kate. I don't think you have to be a fan of hers to recognize that something terrible happened. And it doesn't matter if you like her or you don't like her. No woman, I don't care who the woman is, no woman deserves to be abused or disappeared. I have my suspicions about what may have happened, and I think it may have something to do with domestic violence. But like I said, I don't know what exactly happened. I just know that something happened, and it was bad enough for William and his close circle and the press to begin telling lies and trying to cover up something. But just to be clear, no woman deserves to be abused. It doesn't matter if it's Meghan Markle being abused by the press or Kate being abused by her husband. No woman deserves to be erased from her family. And the reason why I mention Meghan Markle is this. For quite some time now, since Meghan entered the scene, she has suffered relentless abuse from the press, and she has continued to endure abuse from people who I believe have been brainwashed by the press or the Kensington Palace bots on social media into hating her. And it stems from a vicious smear campaign that leads directly to certain members of the royal family. And the reason why I think it's important to mention this in context is because I have noticed a kind of apathy from the British public regarding the odd circumstances surrounding Kate's disappearance. And I have a theory of where this apathy comes from. And you may not all agree with me, and that's okay. But we have arrived at a point where people have fallen into either the Kate camp or the Meghan camp. And I believe that many people in the Kate camp have been so deeply conditioned into believing that there's this competition between Kate and Meghan, one that is completely media manufactured, by the way. But if they acknowledge that something happened to Kate, then it's somehow seen as a victory for Meghan. And that might sound completely ridiculous, but I have seen comments from many of these people feeling the need to pretend as though all is well, that this fairy tale about the princess in the castle living happily ever after is real, and they do not want to imagine that the fairy tale might in fact be a nightmare. And so they play along, pretending that Kate is fine, when any objective observer can see that something is wrong. And I think that's just sad, because that means that they don't really care about Kate at all, and they just see her as a vehicle to exercise their hatred against Meghan. Then you have the people in the Meghan camp who believe that Kate was mean to Meghan, that she did not support her while she was having a difficult time, that she ostracized Meghan and did nothing to counter the negative and unfair press that Meghan received, and that therefore whatever is happening to her now, she somehow deserves. And folks, I just want to say that I don't care if Kate was a mean girl. She still does not deserve to be abused or worse by her husband. And then today there was this report about Kate sending well-wishers this auto response message of thanks. And folks, I just have to ask, is this a joke? Are they trying to punk us? Does anyone believe this is anything other than one of William's latest harebrained schemes to pull the wool over our eyes? So I thought I was all set with enough material today when I came across this piece on my Google page. And it's from Hello Magazine, and it states, "Inside Prince William and Princess Kate's school night dinners for George, Charlotte, and Louis." And it goes on to say, prior to the Princess of Wales revealing she is receiving treatment for cancer, Roya Nika, royal editor for the Sunday Times, revealed that the mother of three was keen to keep up a normal routine for her children, despite recovering from major abdominal surgery. After school, it is just the five of them at home with Kate, rather than a cook or housekeeper usually preparing the dinner, said the report. Well, let's take a look at this report, shall we? So when you click on the report, it links back to another article by Roya Nika, and the article links back to a piece written by Nika from back in March, which states, Princess Kate denies help at home and insists on cooking for the kids despite her surgery. And then it says in finer print, the Times suggests that the princess has been seen at Lambrook School. Now, this is a school that the children attend, but there are no photos to verify this. There's no actual evidence that the children have even been to school. So I guess Miss Roya Nika from the Times is one of the royal family's official stenographers. And it goes on to say, in a bid to give their children a normal upbringing, Kate and William decided that Maria Teresa Turion Borrayo, the family's former live-in nanny, would not relocate with the family. Instead, it seems the couple prefer to raise their children alone, with their 4-bedroom country bolt hole acting as a safe haven for the children to grow up away from the hustle and bustle of London. Guys, did I just read that right? They fired the nanny. They fired the fucking nanny. How do they fire the nanny when Kate is supposedly recovering from abdominal surgery and now has quote unquote cancer? How do they fire the nanny? And now they're trying to say that Kate is at home doing all the cooking for William and the kids. despite her frail condition. And folks, I am just going to address the people of the UK right now. Are you angry yet? Can it be any more obvious that Kate is gone and that William has gotten rid of everyone who worked in close proximity to her and the kids? How are people not outraged at this perfidy? I am flabbergasted right now that this is happening and that people can't see that something has happened to this woman and that she's not coming back. So a few days ago, there was a snippet of a program posted by a Twitter user of this documentary about Kate. And right away, observers were quick to note the finality of the language being used to describe her, in that it almost sounded like an obituary. And folks, I can't help but think that this is some kind of soft launch before they make the ultimate announcement that Kate's quote-unquote cancer spread rapidly and that despite all efforts to save her, she succumbed. I think this is what we're going to hear eventually, because the longer William pretends that she is still with us, the more pressure he will be under every time he steps out in public and people ask how she's doing, or well-wishers give their messages of support. The longer he has to keep up appearances that she is still alive, the more he has to come up with more fake stories, more fake pap shots and body doubles and strategically timed AI videos, because those things are costly. And speaking of that, there is a FOIA request issued to the BBC about the video that they produced. And it's also interesting to note that the BBC did a whole feature earlier on deepfake technology and its implications. So anyway, they have something like 20 days to respond. So it will be interesting to see what responses they come up with. And finally today, I want to end by revisiting these very disturbing crime stats in the UK regarding femicide and victims of domestic violence, and to highlight its prevalence in the UK. You know, when people react with shock and incredulity at the mere suggestion that William may have harmed Kate, I just have to ask why. Why do you think a member of the royal family is incapable of such an act? So according to these stats, a woman who is a victim of homicide is most likely to have been killed by either a family member or a domestic partner. And here, The Guardian did an expose of women in the UK who have fallen victim at the hands of men. So I just want to say that Kate's disappearance is just one out of many that happens every year in the UK. But the only difference is that she will probably never get justice. And that just kind of pisses me off. And I think it should piss every woman off, because femicide is a worldwide problem. Don't think that just because you may live in a wealthy G8 nation where women have this perceived freedom that you are safe. This is why we must stick together as women. We must demand answers whenever any woman goes missing, be it a commoner or a princess. And we must demand justice for all women who have lost their lives to domestic violence. Because if William put his hands on Kate, if William had anything at all to do with why she is no longer with us, and I don't know, maybe he was violent, maybe he had her offed, maybe he had her poisoned, or she suicided. I don't know what the fuck happened to Kate. But the fact that William has some kind of immunity, if it ever comes to light that he had something to do with her demise, the fact that he will get away with it is reason enough to shut this whole shit show of a monarchy down. So let me know what you think in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. And I will continue to follow this important story. And I read all your comments, and I take all your suggestions and all your opinions to heart. And I appreciate all your support. And I will continue to stay on top of this story.